welcoming you to our Bible podcast. Today we turn to Exodus 12, the pivotal Passover night, the moment that marks Israel's deliverance from Egypt and the birth of a people under God's covenant. Context in a sentence or two: Exodus 12 sits at the heart of the book's Exodus narrative. After plagues and pressure, God adopts a rhythm of signs and sacred timing with Israel, culminating in the first Passover and the installation of the annual Feast of Unleavened Bread. Overview of the chapter. The Passover command. God gives precise instructions to the Israelites through Moses. Each household is to take a lamb without blemish, sacrifice it at twilight, and apply its blood to the doorposts and lintels of their houses. The blood becomes a sign, a visible cue of protection, as the Lord passes through to strike down the firstborn in Egypt. The meal prescribed. The lamb is to be roasted, eaten with unleavened bread and bitter herbs, and nothing left overnight. They are to eat in haste, ready to move, sandals on feet and staff in hand. This is a ritual that binds present obedience to future memory. The significance of blood. The blood on the doorposts marks the households for divine mercy. When the Lord sees the blood, he will pass over that house and not permit the destroyer to come into it. The firstborn and the countdown. Pharaoh's stubborn firmness leads to the death of the firstborn in Egypt, including both humans and animals, until Pharaoh relents and lets the Israelites go. This plague breaks Pharaoh's will and triggers the Exodus. The institution of a memorial. God commands remembrance. This day is to be celebrated annually as a memorial, the Lord's Passover. Each generation is to tell the story, to live in the memory of deliverance and gratitude. Instructions for the departure. The Israelites leave in a hurry, with packed bags and sandals on, as a people formed by a defining night. The narrative sets up not merely escape, but a new identity under Yahweh as the deliverer who saves by blood, judgment, and mercy. The passage into the covenant rhythm. Exodus 12 marks the transition from slaves in Egypt to a people with a covenantal vocation. The Passover becomes the foundational act that ties memory, worship, obedience, and mission together. Key themes and takeaways. Deliverance through judgment and mercy. God's judgment on the Egyptians is real, but mercy is extended to those who trust the sign of the blood. The landscape of salvation in this chapter is not a vague benevolence. It is specific, costly, and personal. Covenant formation through ritual. The Passover ritual is not merely a one-off event. It creates a covenantal people with a shared memory, dead serious obedience, and anticipatory hope. Obedience under pressure. The instructions require precise obedience under the pressure of impending danger. Faithfulness in small, concrete acts becomes the doorway to collective salvation. Remembering and retelling. The annual Passover festival is designed to preserve the memory of deliverance across generations, shaping identity through story and ritual. The foreshadowing of redemption. The blood that marks the doors points forward to a broader biblical pattern of redemption, divine protection for those by faith who remain within the provision offered. Practical reflections for today. Consider where you need to trust God's guidance, even when the path seems difficult or counterintuitive. The Passover was a decisive act of obedience that opened a route to freedom. Reflect on how memory shapes faith. How does regularly recalling God's deliverance strengthen your trust and community identity? In your own life, what sign or practice helps you remember and respond to God's acts of salvation and mercy? Question for reflection. If you were living under the shadow of imminent danger, what would faithful obedience look like in your daily choices today? Closing prompt. Thanks for joining me, Graham Blakelock, as we walked Exodus 12 together. If you're listening and want to dive deeper, join the discussion at godstreamradio.com. There you'll find podcasts from leading Christian authors and a community eager to discuss how these ancient texts speak into our lives today. See you next time.